Now, Ace is pretty big in the world of computers, and Canon is equally as big in their own world, which is the camera world. So, Canon have finally decided to embrace something which has been around for a little while. Mirrorless cameras. You know what I'm talking about, like the Olympus Pen, etc. How do they stack up against their competitors, though? It's the Canon EOS M. 2008, I remember that year really well. A lot happened. I watched a lot of football. And also mirrorless cameras first starting popping up. And brands like Olympus and so forth really, grabbed it as fast as they could. And looking back at the cameras now, maybe they weren't that great, but you could see the potential there. You could see why in 08, people were just so enthusiastic about this form of camera. Having a DSLR sensor, basically, inside a more compact body, made a huge world of difference on how portable your camera is and, of course, the quality of the pictures that you get and what you can do with the camera. Fast forward 5 years to where we are now, and really, those mirrorless cameras are certainly a very viable alternative to a more traditional DSLR. So, some of the bigger brands, like Canon, for example, they didn't really play the game at the time. So now they're effectively playing catch-up. And for me, this is more of a 2008 camera rather than a 2013 camera. There's still a long way to go. This, by the way, is a Canon EOS M. And it may look like more of your typical point and shoot from their range in terms of how the body is styled. It's not as, stand out as, say, the Olympus Pen is, which you've recently seen on the show, their latest generation one, that is. And it can almost fall into any other category. Now, standing alongside it, attached here is a 22mm lens. It also comes with the Speedlight 90EX flash, and we also have an 1855mm lens as well. Obviously, this is the zoom lens. How does this all fare, though? Let's see. So, what about this? Well, it's certainly very simplistic, very compact in every sense. If I was to take off this lens, it would look like a slightly chunky point and shoot for one with a silver magnesium alloy body. Now, in terms of how the dials and everything are on this, it really is kept to a minimum. I mean, if you just look at the back, there's a lack of buttons when you compare it to a lot of other mirrorless cameras out there. Even something like the traditional exposure mode dial is now just funneled down into 3 positions. That's it. Saying all that, the lack of buttons, don't be off-put by it, because the touchscreen and how great it is on the back, well, it's comparable to what they have in the 650D where it was really first introduced. It's probably the best that you'll find on a mirrorless camera system. It is very intuitive and very, very, very easy to use. So I'm quite chuffed with that. I mean, it just straight away, it picks everything up and I can do a lot of settings. Unlike the 650D though, that was more of an option, like if you want to use the buttons, you can. If you want to use the touchscreen, you can. Here, I can almost guarantee you'll probably prefer using the touchscreen as opposed to the dials due to the simple lack of dials. Speaking of making things simple, notice at the top, there is no flash there. There's a hot shoe key, and that's why we have the attached flash in the one that I have here. Part of the kit that it comes with is, of course, the 90EX Speedlight. So that slots in at the top, and you can snap away just like that. So, I mean, it really is bare minimum, but luckily, it's made up for the fact that its touchscreen is very, very, very good. So, why don't I seem to be a big fan of this? It's the autofocus. I mean, on the other mirrorless cameras, especially the current generation in 2013, it is leaps and bounds ahead of what we have here with the Canon. I mean, it's not great. Let's just put it that way. For example, let me tell you why. You have the touchscreen in the back. By the way, there is no viewfinder on this as well, adding more to the simplicity of it all. So you're relying on everything to do with the touchscreen on the back. So as you're looking at the touchscreen and you want to autofocus on someone's face, it only comes up sometimes if it's big enough. So if it's slightly smaller, it's not going to pick up unless I use the touchscreen to actually click on the face, in which case it does start to track. But sometimes you don't want that. You want it to be picked up straight away just like that. The saving grace, once again, comes all the way back to the touchscreen. Luckily for this camera, it is great, so intuitive that when the face isn't picked up, which is quite often, you can easily tap it and it should be able to focus in on that point in time. But to be honest, I don't like relying on this touchscreen so much. I prefer to have a little bit more flexibility compared to what we've seen with the other mirrorless cameras out there. I mean, this is verging more on a point-and-shoot system at this point in time. I'm still scratching my head as to see how this is going to appeal to anybody. I mean, to sum it up, it's just a bit bland, really. I mean, for one thing, the body, like I mentioned early on, whereas a lot of the other cameras which are mirrorless go for a very retro style, they're really pushing the envelope. This is just playing it safe. They make it look like any of the other point and shoots that are currently in the market. So a little bit disappointed in that aspect. And I'm not sure who to recommend this to, because with Olympus, their mirrorless camera systems, you got really fast, I mean lightning fast autofocus and lots of lenses that you could use. With Sony, you get something which is, ergonomically speaking, very nice. It's versatile. And Fuji, you get outstanding image quality and control. So if you want something from each of those, if you want the lenses, you go for something from Olympus. If you want the ergonomics, then you go for Sony. If you want the image quality, you go to Fuji. This doesn't appeal to anybody in that sense because it doesn't stand out in any category. Yeah, the touchscreen is great because you've got no other choice but to use it, really, because there's just a lack of buttons. Overall, like in 08, you probably not go back and buy something from Sony, from Fuji, or Olympus when they first came out with their mirrorless systems. You'll buy the current generation, though, and it's the same with the Canon EOS M. Wait for the next one to come out, perhaps. Hopefully, they will tweak it a lot and vastly improve it. But should you still want to stick to your guns if you're loyal to the brand, well, it's going for $3099. That's the kit, the recommended kit, which obviously comes with the body, this 22mm lens, this 18 to 55mm lens, and obviously the flash, which I mentioned earlier on, for you to stick on top. So at a shade over 3,000 ringgit, there's some value there. It's just I think that you need to ask exactly what you want from a camera like this, from a mirrorless camera, and find the brand that suits you best.